right. Welcome everyone to this question and answer video, this long-awaited question and answer video. I apologize for how long it has been, but we have about 32 questions to get through today, so let's get started. First question. Hey Nathan, when you say practice daily, what do you consider a daily practice? Some days I don't sit to meditate, but I do daily breathing exercises and try to occasionally during the day take a deep conscious breath and/or generally notice my thoughts and let them go during the day. Do you consider it a daily practice? As meditation isn't just the act of sitting down to meditate, as you said before. That's right. I regularly say that meditation isn't this thing that has a particular time of the day. It really is this, you could say, a lifestyle change. It's a complete reorientation toward how we deal with our day-to-day experience. So when we are, a lot of us get confused because we think that meditation's like another thing we do, like going to the gym or learning a new skill. We just add it to our to-do lists. And really meditation is about learning to see through thinking, essentially, learning to let thinking go. And yes, that happens all day long. We really want to blur this self-created line between our formal meditation practice and the rest of our life. So yeah, meditation is when you are not attached to your thinking. That's essentially it. So whenever you're doing that, that is a daily practice. However, the reason we sit down formally to do it, like to carve out a specific time of day to do it, really does enhance that momentum of being able to be mindful of the moment. Even though you may be doing it throughout the day, it's really important to have a specific time to daily formally sit. So it is very important because I personally have done this where I'm just like, I don't need to formally sit. I'll just, I'll pay attention to the breath as I walk around, and I'll notice the greenness of the trees and the sound of water and the feeling of the wind on my face, and that's fine, which is true, but it really does help to have a formal sitting practice on a daily basis. You can't really have one without the other, in my opinion. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. You don't want to just only formally sit and then go on with the rest of your day, completely got your mind who knows where. And you also don't want to just be trying to practice all day and then kind of being good at that and then losing it and then having trouble with it. A formal meditation at that point will really help you. But yes, practicing it all every day is daily practice. Appreciate the Q&A you did recently. I did a 30-minute practice after a very long time, and I'm also looking forward to you posting one on occasion so I have a reason to do it again. About saying thank you for showing up for others. It's a bit confusing to hear that, for it then starts to feel righteous or transactional. I'm not sure what it means to do something for others. It's difficult to connect the dots with meditation and others. Yeah, well, I'm sure you know what it means to do something for others, right? Like if somebody's hurting, you help them. That's clear. So maybe in terms of just meditation, what does it mean to meditate and doing that? Have that being a thing for others. And that's really simple. And really, you are the world, right? You're not just like this separate piece and then there's the rest of the world. You are also part of the world. So when you become less attached to thinking, more available, more present, less worried and anxious, you become this light. You become this thing that others gravitate towards and for help. Because when you're not suffering inside, you can see the suffering in others very clearly. And then you can actually be available for others very clearly. And it's also important too that this idea of meditating for me in this I, remember that this I, the center that we feel to be, really isn't a thing. It's created by thinking. The you and the person you feel yourself to be is a story that you repeat to yourself, and it's reinforced by others. And this ultimate kind of illusion, as it falls out, is freedom. And so when we approach practice, it's really useful to approach it as, I'm doing this for others. Not a sense of like righteousness or like I'm holier than thou. I'm better because I'm loving you more than you love me. No ego here. We're actually stopping that whole I altogether. We're approaching practice as something as a benefit to all of existence. I know it sounds cheesy, but really, because when you're content, we need more content people in this world. Not so many opinions and fighting and arguing. You become less reactive, and that's a joy to be around. By learning what you really are, by seeing through thinking, you truly make the world a better place. As corny as that sounds. When you say watching the breath, is that the same as feeling the breath? Feeling myself breathe? How do I watch myself breathe? Yes, it's just a word for feeling yourself. Feeling yourself breathing. That is exactly right. It's just more of coming into direct contact with the sensation of the breath. Not so much like watching by like seeing, or like as if you're some sort of aura around your body looking at yourself. That's certainly not what I'm talking about. It's just when I can ask you now, are you breathing? And how do you know? There. That's watching the breath. It's just a matter of attention, right? Most of the time, our attention's stuck up here in the default mode network, the constant ruminating, the problems and the struggles and the thinking and the talking and the contemplating, the comparing, the worries. It's just always there. So we just leave it alone and bring it to the breath. And so you can say watching thinking or watching the breath, but maybe watching, you don't really want to say feeling thinking and feeling the breath. It's just a way of moving attention. That's all that matters. As long as your attention is coming back to something grounded and present. That is the purpose of the breath. And no, it's not some ultimate seeing or anything like that. Thanks, Nathan. How are you feeling? How are you? Who are you? Maybe knowing this will help me knowing/resting better with who I am. Okay, how are you feeling? I'm feeling well. How are you? I'm good. Who are you? I don't know. And no, this won't help you with yourself. Knowing what I feel like, knowing my insights, knowing that won't help you. As my teacher's teacher would say, don't focus on other people's insights. That's their insight. You find it for yourself. Find it for yourself. The you that thinks it's being helped by knowing anything about me is an illusion. That's just your idea. And you can't know that by me saying this. It sounds crazy, right? So do it yourself. Read the book of you. Look, what are you? You find out. And you shouldn't believe a word out of my mouth. You should see it for yourself. Forget everything I say. Don't believe me unless you see it for yourself. Why is meditation very much important? Meditation really is the one thing that we do unlike everything else we do. And I could say that meditation is very important because we suffer, because suffering is real. We worry, we're depressed, we overthink, and we're stressed. And most of human existence and most people you meet are in this state of suffering. But we feel good, we chase things that help us feel better. We watch TV and, you can get along. But meditation is this way of radically seeing through all of that. Because our stress and our feelings of unwellness psychologically, all are a product of thinking. All of it. Pain is real, but psychological pain is real too, but we don't have to attach to it. So meditation is learning to just leave it alone. And the problem is just a matter of attention, which is why I call this the attentive mind. For right now, I'll ask you, can you feel your left foot? And you can feel it. You don't have to do anything, you just feel your left foot. Now move that attention to your right hand. Then to your left hand. You see how this ability to pay attention to different parts of the body, that attention is usually up here with thinking. Always thinking. And because we are so addicted to that thought, to thinking. We believe it's real. We reify it. We say I. And that thinking is this biological mechanism. It's made for survival. It's an evolutionary process made for survival. It makes the present moment unsatisfactory because we need to get to the next moment. If we didn't think that way, we wouldn't have survived. So everything's kind of not as good as it could be. And the good thing is always coming later down in life. But now that you live in well, you probably have your food. If you're able to watch this video, you're probably doing okay. So we don't need survival so much. And this mind has become a little bit of a nuisance. So learning to just leave it alone, because you're not these thoughts. Thoughts happen in the same way your heartbeat happens. It happens all by itself. So learning to just leave it alone is a lesson in learning to leave suffering alone. And when you don't identify with thinking, you're right here, completely free from your mind. So that's why meditation's important. You say it's easy to find the breath, but who finds the breath? That's a question for you. Don't ask me. Who watches this video? Who is not a good question. What watches this video? Who implies a personality in a story, like a character in a movie? What sees the breath? What gets lost in thought? What is this center you feel to be? Looking out at a TV screen with me on it. What is that? Look. Don't ask me. Turn your attention back. What are you? What are you? Is there something there? Let me know what you discover. Have you found out what's there behind thinking? My irritation is always seeing the big picture and absolute racing thoughts. It's like I feel I see the whole universe all happening all at once, and when I try to explain things to a friend, they can't keep a pace with how quick my thought processes jump around. I used to be able to multitask on an extreme level. Now I can't due to having lots of anxiety and fear over a partner. Now I don't like to multitask and concentrate on one thing at a time, but I still suffer from seeing the big picture and processing problem solving. It's almost like I see my mind as a computer program I'm watching from the outside, but I can't switch it off. So to quiet my mind enough to see what's behind thinking seems like an impossible task. Can you help with that? I find your sessions are the only thing that helps me try and catch that elusive feeling behind thought. I know it can seem kind of difficult to understand when I say what is before thinking. It seems like there's a there. There's a thing that can be seen, like this special spiritual place to which everything happens, and that's just not true. In fact, you are no more distant from that place right now. There's no distance between that place. There's nothing for you to find out in that sense, other than the I that you keep reinstating, the reification of yourself. I, me. When you look, are you looking, is my question to you, or are you just thinking about meditation? Are you actually looking, or are you thinking about it? Are you trying to solve problems with the practice? Knowing the question, have you found out what's there, makes me think that you think that there's something there that needs to be found. But there's not. That's the point. When you look for I, you're thinking, there's just immediately upon turning, like right now, what are you? You look, and immediately there's this, but then you start thinking, yeah, well, what does that mean? What does he mean by that? Right before that thought arises, come back, turn it back. What are you? Yeah, but I really don't understand what he's saying. right before that thought arises, just stay there. Just stay there. Your mind doesn't have to be quiet. Thoughts can keep going on, but you can just notice that place. Just notice that place. And I hope you understand, and I've seen you've been practicing with the Attentive Mind quite some time. And I say this a lot, you don't need to quiet your mind in any way to see what is before thinking. Thoughts don't have to stop. They don't have to be quiet. Let your mind race. That's a very important point. There's a level of you trying to control things. Don't control. Let your mind run. As the mind is running around, turn. What sees it? What sees it? And then you may ask, when you ask this question, what's there? Have you found it? That's thinking. That's more thinking. It won't help you. That question comes from you thinking. That's just a thought. Don't think about it. Let your thoughts run. What sees that question? What sees the curiosity? What? Just turn. And you say, yeah, but what do I find? That's more thought. What saw that? You have to practice. You will think yourself to death over this. Many people spend 40, 50 years meditating and not seeing the point because they're just thinking about it all the time. This is not something to think about. It is not something to figure out. It's like if we have the menu in the dinner, asking the question, have you found out what's behind thinking? Is like eating the menu without actually just eating the dinner. The menus are representation. They're words. They're thoughts. They represent the dinner. They're not the dinner. Eat the dinner. Don't worry about these questions like that. Eat the dinner. Practice. Really practice. No answer of mine will help you. You answer it. You look. Question. So working in garden, for example, or painting a room, or giving dog bath, well, if you're completely focused on that task is a form of meditation? Excellent video. Yes. Yeah, I mean, I don't like the word meditation very much because it has so much baggage. You know, people have these ideas about what it is. Really, I really want to call it attention practice but I don't think that's very sexy. So I won't call it attention practice, but that's really what it is. We're learning to leave thinking alone. And yeah, when you're engaged in like a book even, or watching a movie, you're completely engaged, where's the sense of self? Where's the me? Where's the problems? When you're gardening, or if you're really, and you're not lost, see when you're gardening, if you're not lost in discursive thinking, like you're thinking about dinner while you're gardening, or thinking about the nature of life while you're gardening, or thinking about your problems while you're gardening, that's not meditation. But if you're in the exact moment, there's no subject, no object. They both kind of just are right here, kind of like in the flow. If you ever played sports or if you ever play music, and you were just one. There's no I, no me, no you, no outside, no inside, no up, no down, just the music. That's practice. So these things can be useful, but they're not substitutes for actually practicing. Because what we call meditation is learning the skill of deliberately leaving thinking alone. So we bring our attention to the breath. That's a deliberate process. And that is a skill to be used at any time of your life. So you don't want to say, like I hear people say this all the time, like, oh, well, painting's my meditation. Oh, well, walking in the woods is my meditation. And that's not the same thing. We're learning about the nature of our minds. So just not being lost, just not being worried about your problems for a moment of time isn't meditation practice. It's a form of it. It's a glimpse, but really practicing is learning to leave thinking alone and doing that at any moment, like right now. right now as I'm talking, leaving it alone now, always. That's practice. So be careful to use these as substitutes and saying, oh, my meditation is hiking, or my meditation's this. It's not. It's a deliberate, it's not going to help you as much as the deliberate skill of learning to leave thinking alone and waking up from it. Thank you, Nathan. I love that I was led to your channel. I have been asking for content exactly like this. Much appreciated. 2 questions. Where do thoughts originate? The most random thoughts pop up from my past, childhood, that it would never occur to me to even ponder. But there, they are once I quiet my mind. I've heard that all thought forms have been around since the beginning of time, but these pertain specifically to me with enough charge to grab my attention. How can one navigate away from fearful thoughts that are so powerful, compelling, debilitating? Thank you. Where do thoughts come from? Well, you might not like my answers because I'm very practical. The first one is thoughts come from your brain, right? And there's ways we neuroscientists can kind of identify where thinking happens. It's still a mystery, but it is certainly a product of the brain. This idea about maybe the Jungian collective consciousness or something like that, I'm not too sure about. So I wouldn't worry about where thoughts come from some metaphysical realm or anything like that. To me, it doesn't make a lot of sense. It makes more sense that it comes from your brain, the neurology of biology, or the biology of neurology. And the second, but there's 2 ways of answering that. So one comes from the brain. That's kind of an objective look at it. But from an experiential point of view, from your experience and my experience, when you just sit and wait for a thought, it seems to come out of absolutely nowhere. It just pops up and then goes. Pops up and goes. Which is one of the most important discoveries. Most of the time we cling to our thoughts and we don't just let it pop up and go. It's just this thing that goes on and off all by itself. But because we're so attached to it, we think they're so real. We reify them. We make it our life. We call it I, and we say we've created. It's just our whole existence becomes thinking. So it's very hard to kind of see through that. So from an experiential point of view, thoughts seem to come from nowhere. And from an objective point of view, thoughts come from the brain. No doubt about that. More than likely. But very little doubt to doubt that. The other question is, how do we get away from negative sensations, negative feelings or emotions, I think you said. I want to be true to that. You said, oh goodness, negative, away from fearful thoughts that are so powerful. Yeah, and I know fear. If there's anything my brain likes to do is be very anxious all the time. But the thing we do is that you don't want to move away from these things. I know it feels like we need to. You know, it's very uncomfortable to be afraid and anxious and, in fact, debilitating. But step number 1 when faced with a ghost, don't run. Step number 1 when faced with negative emotions, don't try to get rid of them. Instead, watch it. Just watch it. Not to get rid of it, but really, what is it? What is really it? You know? For example, you may think, oh, I got this pain in my leg. What if that's a tumor? I should go to the doctor. And you're just ruminating about it all day. And then you're like, okay, well, it's probably not a tumor, but I'm still afraid of this. It could be. And so it just kind of sticks in there, right? It gets all sticky up in there. When you just say, you know what is anxiety? What is this feeling? Where do I feel the anxiety? Invite it in out of curiosity. Don't run from it. Let it happen. When we run from it, it's another way of holding on to it because you're making a thing about it. So just let it do its thing. Just see how long will it last. Not, please go away. I'm going to watch how long it lasts so it can go away. No, just, what is it? I promise you, you'll notice it's not so insane. It's not so crazy. And the more you do that, the more you just allow anxiety to show up, allow negative emotion to show up, just let it happen. And just be aware of the moment as well. So we allow it, step 1. Step 2, be present. what are you doing right now? What are your hands doing? What do your eyes see? What do your ears hear? What does your nose smell? Just be here. Not in order to get rid of it, just be here. Stop running. Stop chasing. Just let it happen. And the more you do that, the less and less this has such an influence on you. It's not so debilitating because it's just another thing in awareness. It's just here. So don't run and be present and allow. I didn't say that one, but allow. Who am I? I am not this body. I also have a body. My name is Tamara. Can you please explain? Thank you. I'm sorry, I'm not really sure what your question is. And I'm not trying to be dismissive, but who am I is not as a great question as what am I? Who kind of implies like a character in a story. Like still these people with stories. I want to say, what is this? What am I? And this is a question for you. If you don't understand and you need me to explain it, then you're trying to think about it. We're not thinking here. We're not using thinking here. That's probably a better way of saying it. We're not using thinking with this. Thinking can happen, but it's not what we use to answer the question. And as Sri Ramana Maharshi says, the question, who am I, but rather, what am I, is not a question to be answered in the usual way. It is a question to dissolve the questioner. So this isn't a thing to think about. So you ask, please explain. Explain literally means to lay out in a plane. You want me to make it clear by telling you something for your mind, by thinking. You want me to explain it like a concept. It's not going to help you. What explanation could possibly help you? It's more thinking. What are you doing right now? Stay there. Hey Nathan, thanks for this one. A question I have. Well, it's not really a question, but can we hear a little about your story and life? You mentioned you used to play a heap of video games. I'd love to hear how you got where you are. Much love. All right. I don't usually like this question, but that's all right. I still play video games. Video games are great. I think maybe I was mentioning how there was a time in my life where I would just do nothing but smoke weed and play video games. I think, boy, and it was with a friend of mine, and that's all we did. I mean, we would work, I would deliver pizzas, and then get all the money I could and just smoke weed and play video games. And of course, that's not very productive. But a little of my life, well, I could talk about meditation in terms of meditation, which is always where I like to orient things. When I was a bit younger, I would have this capacity, this weirdness. I would call it just stop. That's what I used to call it. And this is before I knew anything about meditation. I would call it just stop. And I remember when I would be upset about something, or something was going crazy, or things just seemed really crazy, I would just go like, and it would all just disappear, and I could just let it go. And it wasn't until later I learned that was just me just becoming very present in the moment, learning to just leave thinking alone. I just left it all alone. I dropped all of it at once, and I didn't know I was doing that. So that was kind of my first initiation with this kind of capacity to just leave all thinking alone. I just figured it out without knowing anything about meditation. It just was this thing. I don't even know how to explain it. I would call it just stopping. I would just stop. And I would actually make that face. I'd be like, I don't know. So I grew up pretty nicely. My father was a doctor, so we grew up in a good home. I have a very loving family, and everything was really great. And I was able to just do what I wanted. I played a lot of video games. I did kind of crappy at school. And I was a Rastafarian for a while, always seeking, but I've always had this inquisitive mind. I was a Christian for a long time, but it wasn't until I went to college and started reading and learning about things. I learned a lot about the East because of Alan Watts. I got really obsessed with him for a while, and then learned about meditation that way. And started practicing. And started learning from different people like Eckhart Tolle or Ajay Shanti, and Muji even, although I wouldn't actually recommend some of these people. Ajay Shanti, yes. But then while doing that, I was going to be a doctor, so I went to college to be a doctor for a long time. And I realized that, and I was going to be a doctor with a philosophy degree, and I realized that I didn't actually care much about medicine as I wanted to, so I decided to just get the philosophy degree. And that began this whole thing of spiritual, I hate the word spiritual, but trying to wake up, trying really hard to become enlightened. So I really started practicing. And I gave my whole life to it. And then during that time, my father committed suicide, which was this big change. And that was like, oh my gosh, this is the real deal. What I'm doing here isn't just a matter of being calmer. This is a matter of what am I even doing? What is this existence at all? And so I realized I really needed to find a teacher. I really needed to actually do this thing for real. And because of Alan Watts, he's very into Zen, I just went through the Zen Buddhist tradition and I found this teacher who was also an American born in Germany, Hyangak Sunim, and I was able to fly over there and meet with him. And he taught me how to meditate. He taught me the real deal. And I mean, I was meditating before, but he really showed me the emphasis in actually practicing and not just listening to spiritual talks online, and not just like sitting and like trying to pay attention to the breath, but he really taught me how to practice and what this is really all about. And I actually moved to Germany for a while in order to do that, like just to be with him and just the practice. But then the pandemic happened, and the borders were closed in Germany, so I left. But when I got back to the States, I continued the practice in a very deep way. I had another friend who is now a Buddhist monk in the Theravada tradition, but we would practice and do retreats together a lot. So I made retreats kind of a thing, doing week-long retreats in the woods, doing a lot of hard practice is what they would call it. And then I learned some stuff. Don't have to go into that too much, but it dawned on me that, well, I can't just keep this to myself. And really, from the motivation of my father going through such a difficult time, it would be really horrible for me not to share this as much as I can with the world. And so that's when I started the Attentive Mind, because I realized that this teaching isn't subject to just like the spiritual world, and it's not just something Buddhists do. It's really available for everyone, just like going to the gym is available for everyone. And so I decided to devote my life to sharing this practice with you, and not as a teacher so much either, but more as a fellow student sharing what I know, because I'm also, a human being. So I wouldn't say I'm any kind of master or anything like that, but there are masters. But yeah, that's a little bit about me in terms of meditation. Hi Nathan, I have a question. When you say to turn back into the awareness and to try to find the part of you that's aware, my mind can't focus. A weird feeling comes over me that I can't really put my finger on. Is that the point of the question? That there's no answer and our minds don't know what to do with that? Or is there something I'm missing? Thank you. No. Very, very good. Stay there. This is absolutely great. That is real insight. Because you're right, when you look, and it's completely immediate. You look, what sees this? What sees this? In fact, you can do it with me right now. What sees this? And the moment you look, there's nothing can be said, right? It's just, but what most of us do is we start thinking about it immediately, like, oh, what is he talking about, or whatever. And even this question is you thinking about it. So drop that too. This is great. So you're right. This weird feeling comes over you. That's right. Leave it alone. Turn. Right here. What are you? Stay. That's it. That there's, my teacher always did it like this. He's like, you turn your mind, your thoughts can't go there. That's what happens. What am I? Trying to see this. What am I? What am I? There's nothing to see. But even that's saying too much. So just turn, and immediately when you see, what am I? What are you? And if you could just rest as that, the more you go back to that place, you keep going back to that place, keep going back to that place. These words, of course, I know if you see what I'm talking about, that's too much. But you keep going back to that place and just rest right there, right there. What am I? It's not even a something. It's just and we all know it. So very, very good. That's a good thing. And for everyone who did not understand that answer, that's okay. This is a little bit, this is the kind of insight I'm looking for. That's really great. That's real insight. Good. 5 years ago, I had a mom, a home, a job. Now I don't have any of those things, and I feel, though perceive myself too often actually be, vulnerable. Though I know I have come through some constant difficulties. I have to come to learn that this too will pass. But it begs the question of why we strive to keep ourselves from falling. How can we enjoy this life when the problems of being part of this life need us to do rather than be? Is doing the opposite of being? When you're doing something, like right now, you're doing watching me. Are you also not being at this exact same time? Difficulties will always come, and they will come in different strengths for all of us. Some people are luckier than others. But it's all the same in the sense that difficulties will never end. And you ask, how do we enjoy this life with constant difficulties and having to react and do rather than be? Practice this practice. Learn to leave thinking alone. Thinking is difficult. Difficulty is thinking. When you're sick, it's difficult, it hurts. But what's far worse than being sick is thinking about sick. Thinking, how long will this go in the future? I just don't want this. I feel so horrible. Look at me. Poor me. That is thinking. You leave it alone. Your questions stem from thinking, being trapped in you wanting to know the answers with more ideas. And I will tell you, I will keep guiding you back and back and back. Practice. What are you? Turn the attention. Really do it. Really look. Don't just talk about meditation to your friends. Don't just talk about metaphysical stuff and being. Don't do that. Don't talk about it. What are you? Right here. Right here. Freedom sits right here. And you keep jumping over it, trying to get the answers. Forget the answers. Forget the question. What are you? And if you don't understand, turn this video off and sit. Just sit. Notice breathing. Leave thinking alone. Thinking won't help you. Sorry if I sound harsh. It's just true. You can't figure this out by thinking. We live with difficulty when we see through it. But you can't see through it if you're trying to think your way through it. So practice. Always practice. There should be this phrase, always be practicing. ABP. ABP. Always be practicing. Good luck. I have a lot of involuntary movement in body and head during this meditation. What to do? Allow it. Allow it to happen. Don't be a control freak. Don't let the control freak take over and be like, no, you must stay still. Don't move. Your body, it's kind of interesting how the mind reacts against our controlling nature. It'd be like, oh, you want to sit still? Well, take this. It's not really that way, but it feels like that way. So just whatever the mind wants to do, whatever the body wants to do, we just let it do it. Don't need to control. Just be present. Notice. Don't be thinking about, oh, I should be this way or that way. That's just putting your ideas on the practice. Leave it. If the head wants to move, the head wants to move. If the legs want to move, the legs want to move. Just notice it. Then notice what notices it. What sees it. But even before that, just a really important preliminary to meditation at all is the act or the art of allowing things to be as they are. So this is great for you. This is a great practice. Allow it to be. Again, you are reading my mind, asking me all the questions I need to be asking myself. The practice is worth it, but it's a constant thing, and I don't think I will ever stop. But I'm able to be more in this moment and rest. That rest is something I can't get elsewhere. Practicing and breathing are my two favorite pastimes. Simple question, what are yours? I used to ski, climb, kayak, surf, cycle, and swim. I mean, I still do, but not to the extent that I have to do them to feel alive. I can feel alive standing in a bus, stop watching everyone around me like I'm in one of those movies where they speed up the action around the person. I'm there. Oh, I love reading. I'm a big reader. I love reading philosophy, and I like argumentation. Not in a negative way, but I just enjoy debating, and even watching debates. I like learning a lot. This constant stream of information. I also like spending time with my loved ones. I know it's cliche, but it's true. I love traveling. I've done a lot of traveling. I like playing video games. But the main ones really are reading and spending time with learning and spending time with my family. And of course, the best pastime of all is practice. Being here now is the best pastime, because then time never passes. I came upon a thought on listening to the gong that whatever is filling my world on its own is precious. Receive it with grace, and there is no other perfection. What do you say? I say that sounds great, but it's still thinking. It sounds great, and it's a good thought, but it is still thinking. What happened before that thought arose? Perfection is an idea. What is before perfection? What do you discover? Sir, this is the first video of this channel I am watching for 3 days. I don't know why I found it to be better working with me than many others I saw. Can you please give me a list of the videos on this channel, which one should watch one by one following the order? There may be more than one set or order of numbers. Have you seen? Well, for you, it's an old book, Physical Chemistry by Atkins, where the author guided students in how they may proceed in various orders of chapters as per his/her approach. Please guide us in this maze called Internet and YouTube and all these which confuse us by choices arranged by Lorda of Net. And what should I do if I want to mail you once? Thank you. Okay. Mailing me? Don't worry about mailing me. I appreciate it, but I'd rather keep my those kind of things private. Although I might set up a mailing address. It's not a bad idea. Yeah, maybe I'll think about it. I'll let you know if I do. The plethora of things that you can pay attention to on the internet, especially in terms of meditation. Well, first to like how to do the videos, I've curated each video. So I do a daily guided meditation, and these videos aren't in any order at all. They are really for the beginner and the expert at the same time. So these are really just curated on their own. It's not like a course, although I have been thinking about doing a course, and please let me know what you all think if you are watching this. So there's no order to go in. Just start today. You'll see one tomorrow. Start with that one. You don't even have to go back and see the other videos, but you can if you'd like. With meditation though, I'll just say generally, a really good thing to do with meditation practice is to begin, before you even begin with like paying attention to the breath or whatever, begin with sitting silently and allowing things to be. That's really a really important preliminary. I've been using that word a lot lately because I'm finding it more and more important for people. And maybe I've kind of jumped the gun with a lot of it. But you really just want to learn, just before you even start doing anything, just learn how to just let things be as they are, without imposing your opinion, without wanting it to change, without not just letting go of the control freak. Let it be. Notice what is and say yes. That's a very good way to start practice. Then as you kind of cultivate that, you can start to bring awareness to the breath. And as you notice getting lost in thought and returning to breathing, getting lost in thought, returning to breathing. And then you'll start to just be with the breath longer and longer as thinking will happen. This is a development of what I call the mindfulness muscle. So you just stay with breathing, allow it to be, allow everything to be, and leave thinking alone. And as you can do that for a while, I would say, if you can sustain the breath without getting lost for quite some time, and I'm not going to give a specific time because then you'll hone in on that. But then you turn the attention. When you feel sufficiently let go of thought, you turn the attention. What sits here? What is this center I feel myself to be? What sees this video? What am I? And that's the path, I think you can say. However, don't pay attention to that path. There is no path. And don't let that confuse you. Don't be like, oh, okay, what should I do? Allowing first and then should I do that? Or, oh, wait, I'm in this stage of just listening to my breath. Okay, I'm going to do that for 30 minutes. Then I'm going to turn attention. Please, I honestly probably shouldn't have just said what I said. But yeah, the videos are in no particular order. Just if you are going to start and you're brand new to meditation, begin with allowing things to be. That's all. Then watch the videos and see what happens. Don't worry about any stages or anything like that. Thank you very much, Nathan, for these videos. I appreciate your perseverance. One question I always ask myself is, after you gently guide us towards getting face-to-face against our me and seeing what is really there, most of the time I find myself with a sense of relaxation and relief. But there are times when I am constantly searching without finding anything. I understand that this is part of the practice, but sometimes I get frustrated because I don't have an answer to what's there. Right. Well, this I that wants to find a question that's there isn't real. And so there's a part of you, when you notice relaxation, that is, you can almost say it's the mind relaxing. It's the mind realizing it's not this separate me thing. It's just like, oh, finally. But when you feel this kind of sense of contraction, that's the mind believing it's a particular self, like whatever your name is, and you're holding on to it. And then it can't find an answer. I need the answer. I need the answer. This is frustrating. It's like, when you can't, it's like that feeling when you can't remember a word. You're like, what are you talking about? I got to figure this out. we're not thinking. If you notice frustration, it's you're thinking. That's the key. It should be an alarm clock. Any kind of negative emotion, thinking. If you're suffering, thinking. So, and also don't judge the meditation. When you look, what am I? And you see, and you just kind of rest as that, whatever that is, just no words about it, just, and then you stay there, and it feels so nice and blissful. Then the next day you meditate, and you're like, why can't I get back to that place? Don't judge your meditations like that. Be careful not to make a thing of it or a scoreboard. We're not getting anywhere. There's nowhere to achieve. There's no bliss to achieve. We just do the practice, and the practice is gently looking and resting. Looking and resting. What am I? Yeah, but the outcome, don't worry about the outcome. Just do the practice. Don't worry about, and if you're frustrated, remember, okay, thinking, leave it alone. I don't need an answer. Just this. What am I? Silence is the answer. And that's saying way too much. What is meditation and what is it used for? I really don't like the word meditation. I think I've said this before. It should really be called attention practice. It's about learning to pay attention to something else other than thinking. And that has very, very deep implications, because most of how we suffer psychologically and how we deal with basically everything that we have trouble with, 99.9% of it is just thinking. And learning to leave that alone makes us know that all these problems that we have and all this difficulty we have in our world, most of it is self-created. But of course it translates into bad actions. But we learn to leave thinking alone because we don't want to suffer. And that's what meditation's used for, to answer the second part of your question. Meditation is learning what we really are, that we are not our thoughts, and to alleviate suffering, not just for us, but for others. This is beautiful. Replacing the why with what is a wonderful practice. I see myself in the why, chasing answers and explanations. What seems to be a liberation from that. Thank you. Edit. Is this what trapped emotion is? And so does what lead to anticipation? Trapped emotion is clinging to emotion. So maybe, the point is you kind of go to therapy for the why questions, which is really useful. Don't get me wrong. I'm not putting therapy down in any way. In fact, if you feel like you need a therapist, go see a therapist. Don't meditate first. Go see a therapist if you really feel like you need to. But the why is figuring out how your mind operates, and it might be really useful. But with meditation, it's a separate thing. We're saying, what is it? What meaning, not before we think about it, what is it? Is it trapped emotion? Trapped emotion, I'm not really sure I understand that question. Trapped emotion to me is just clinging to emotion. So usually we cling to emotion by running away from it. We don't want it, so we try to run away from it. But by somehow running away is actually a clinging. And so, yeah, asking the why could do that. It also can release that trapped emotion. So I don't know. I don't really know how to answer that question. But what is important here is that meditation is about what? Not what, meaning, oh, this is what it is and I can write it down now in my journal. No, what is it for real from experience alone? So, I don't know, I hope that helps. So if we find the answer to what is there, what is the observer, have we failed to grasp anything? If we don't, will the unanswered question destroy us, or at least, if not having the answer, how can we continue to exist in this realm? Yeah, this is the same thing you keep running into. You keep thinking that there's a there, that you're just thinking about this question and you're not practicing. You're trying, see, this is a question. You're thinking about it. You're trying to give yourself a good pleasant idea so you can package it and say, now I understand. And that's not the kind of understanding we're doing. We are seeing from directly our experience. You know, this question can be answered by practicing. You can see for yourself. I'm not sure what you mean by exist in this realm. I don't really have a belief system of realms. I'm not really sure what you mean by that. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but that has nothing really to do with what I'm sharing. Will the unanswered question destroy us, or at least have nothing? It depends what you mean by us. Yeah, I'm just so sorry. I'm not really sure what your question is. But if I can just kind of look at it from a stepped back point of view, I think you're running into the same wall over and over again. You're thinking that you can think your way through this when practice is what's necessary. This isn't something about, yeah, you just have to practice. Any words I can give you won't help you unless it leads you back to practicing. If it's not leading you back to practicing and to investigating what am I and to sitting and leaving thinking alone, then I've not done my job. And I'm here to tell you, and I'm going to keep pointing you back with all these questions. What are you? You got to practice. You keep wanting thinking answers. You need practicing answers. And maybe this is my fault for not correcting and not telling you this before, because it's been a month and a half since I've answered questions. But yeah, you just got to practice. That's what's key here. That's really what's key here. Now, I'm not saying don't ask questions, but a lot of your questions are coming from a place of just pure conceptual cloud. It's just concepts and ideas and wanting to figure it out. Practice. If you've been with me for the last however long you've been with me, you know that practice is the key, not the words, not the ideas. So practice. I beg you, just practice. Why is it important that need to just stop thinking about things that I have no control of? Well, because constantly thinking and ruminating about things you have no control of causes suffering. Does it feel good to do that? Does it feel good to ruminate over things you literally can't control? Yeah, it's just, it kind of hurts, doesn't it? And it's not about stopping thinking either. You know, thinking can happen. It's just our attachment to it. It's just, we don't need to believe in every thought that comes through our head. The truth is, you really can't stop thinking because it's an automatic thing. It happens like your heartbeat. I mean, if you learn to leave it alone sufficiently, yes, thoughts will basically die. But I don't want that to be a goal for you or anyone, because that can cause a lot of confusion. Just leave it alone and see what happens. Learn to leave thinking alone. That's what's important. So we can't stop thinking, and it's not about stopping thinking. It's about learning to leave it alone. And we do that because our thoughts about things that we can't control cause suffering. And I'm sure you know that. What is the purpose of not thinking? Yeah, same thing. We're not, this practice isn't about not thinking. The purpose of not being attached to thought is freedom from thinking, because thinking causes our suffering. Please, can you explain how we allow, e.g. worry? Must we allow ourselves to worry? I find it hard to understand. Thank you. No, when I say allow yourself to worry, it doesn't mean to continue to be attached to the worry in the sense of continually thinking about something. Like, let's say, for example, I know this one well, you're worried about the results of some test you're going to get from the doctor. And there's one way of doing this. You can worry about it. And what that means is to incessantly, constantly think about, what if it's a bad result? What if it's something bad, something negative? And you do that. When I say to allow worry, it's not continuing to engage in those thoughts. It's allowing the feeling and the sensations of worry to be as they are. You begin by not running from the worry. You allow worry to be as it is, noticing it, noticing the thoughts of being afraid, noticing the the feelings and the butterflies and the sensations of the chest, and just allowing it. That's just the beginning of breaking up its kind of clinging, its tentacles into your mind, you know? And by doing that, it allows it to just kind of relax, just, okay. And we don't just allow worry in order to get rid of it, because that's actually not allowing it. That's still pushing it away. We allow worry completely. We allow it to be just as it is. But it doesn't mean being continuously lost in thought. And this is why when I say the beginning, you allow, then become very present. Notice what you see, what you smell, what you hear, just this moment, with worry allowed to be there. Then see what happens. For one of your next Q&As, would you share some of the resources and readings you've most enjoyed and found value from, please? And yes, I totally understood your message of doing/being, walking the walk, not just reading/absorbing/learning, but still interested in your recommendations. Thank you, Nathan. Well, it is true. Reading other people's ideas is learning about other people's insight, which can be useful. Boy, I have a literal library of resources. And I am this, because I'm also a philosophy person, so I really, really read deeply into not just meditation, but all things Eastern philosophy. And so a comprehensive list would be, it wouldn't be impossible to take a long time. If you can, I would suggest, and I think I've suggested this before, but Sam Harris's Waking Up app is truly supreme in terms of what we're doing here. His app puts together many, many different ways of talking about the same thing, and it's all about meditation. It's called the Waking Up app. That would be some of the best thing you can do, because that pulls together a huge plethora and voluminous amount of resources for you. From really good, he has a whole bunch of different teachers on there, and you're able to hear a conversation with him and with those teachers. You're also able to practice. He has these great practices that you can just start from day one. I really, really do promote. I mean, this is not a promotion, obviously. This is just my personal opinion. Go to the Waking Up app. Really, that really will give you a great resource of information. But if you don't want to spend money, because it does cost money, well, actually, you can get it for free. If you can't afford it, you can get it for free as well, which is what I'm going to do at some point. But in terms of reading, it just won't help you. I mean, you really just got to practice. You don't want to get involved, and I know you say you know this, and I get it, but practicing is the most important thing. But if you want to kind of immerse yourself with Dharma talk all the time, which can be really useful as well in some ways, I would read people like Adyashanti, Sri Ramana Maharshi's books, but you have to get past kind of the religious side of it, and just notice really when they're talking about the nature of mind. They use different language that may sound spooky and weird, but it's actually just from their culture, and they're all talking about the same thing. If you do anything, reading books on meditation from Buddhist texts, Buddhist sources are really good. They just have been doing meditation for thousands of years, so they have a lot of insight into the practice. But yeah, Adyashanti, Sri Ramana Maharshi. If you want to do a little bit more philosophical, Alan Watts. I would read Christmas Humphreys, Carl Jung with psychology. I would, boy, that's a list. I don't know if I want to go through all of them, but there's a lot. But of course, there's no practice like actually just practicing. No book can show you you. And in the end, these books can be a big problem, because they make you think that you need to seek something that they have found. And so when you're meditating, you're trying to find some experience you read about, and you don't want that. You really want to find this in your own way. You just follow the practice, and you won't ever need to read a book. My teacher, in fact, when people would bring books to retreats, he would take them and rip them apart. Back in the day, doesn't do it anymore, but he would basically just admonish, like say, do not read. This has nothing to do with words. So I implore you to leave the reading alone and just practice. You'll see very quickly, if you really practice, you'll never need to read a word of this again. So, thank you. Can you please explain more about what and why? Yeah, the point there is that what, usually when we're talking about, like, we say, why do I feel this way? Why am I so depressed? Why am I anxious? And we try to go back and back and back. This why question just produces more words, more concepts. Why do I feel this way? Well, you feel this way because of this. Well, why because of this? Well, because of this. And it's kind of this infinite regress. Useful. Very good for like therapy. It's going in and seeing what's actually going on in terms of conceptual and like why you feel a certain way, what your traumas were and where all that happens. What is more of a momentary thing? What's happening right here? Not trying to contemplate and come up with a new concept and a new story of how things are going on, but rather, what really is it? There's an old story, an Indian story, about, and I think I've said this, if you're a viewer of the channel, you've heard this many times, but it's an analogy of when you're walking in the woods at night and you come across a snake across the road, you become very fearful. And that snake, because it can kill you, right? So it's just scary, but it's a little obscure and you can't really see the snake. And in reality, that snake is just a rope. However, because it's dark, you can't see it. Now, we can ask before we look at it and say, why is that in the road? Why would a snake be here? Why is this even a problem? You know, why am I afraid of snakes in the first place? Yeah. Or you can just go up to it and look at it and see that it's just a rope. You can say, what is it? Not why is it? When you say why, you come up with reasons. When you say what, you actually look at it for real. Just as it is. So when you have anxiety, you don't say, why do I have anxiety? You say, what is anxiety? You feel it here and now. Really figure out what your mind is doing. I hope that helps. I'm currently experiencing depression and anxiety. My nervous system and brain constantly give false alarms that can, at times, be very convincing. Obsessive, negative thoughts, oversensitivity, and general feeling of unsafety and fear, trouble sleeping at times. I know they are caused by the brain and that I am healthy. I'm waiting for CBT, but in the meanwhile, how do you advise me to approach meditation? A lot of my suffering is very similar. Not so much the depression, but the feeling of being unsafe all the time, that something catastrophic is about to happen. And yeah, it is debilitating. For people who don't understand what it's like to just constantly worry and to constantly, you can never explain it to them. A lot of people just say, just get over it, because they don't understand how debilitating it actually is. How frustrating, like your brain will constantly say, yeah, but what if that, but yeah, but well, what if, I'm no good, you know? It's constant. I would begin, what really helped me wasn't to try to pick up some big task of learning meditation, like becoming enlightened or anything like that. But rather, it's just to start allowing these feelings to happen, to begin there. Begin with saying yes to the fear, yes to the depression. When you try to run away from it, it is another form of clinging to it. For some reason, I don't even know how or why, I really don't. But when you say no to the depression, no to the anxiety, it makes it worse. It causes like this feedback loop and it just comes right back, right? And you know this. How much of your pushing away has helped you? None of it. So we begin by just, not all at once, not in this crazy situation, but just allowing it. Okay, just here it comes. Depression's here. That is true. Anxiety's here. That is true. That is what it is. Okay. Now I know it's very uncomfortable and it could be very frustrating because the first thing you want to do is run. But see if you can just for maybe 5 seconds or 10 seconds, be like, can I just allow this sensation? Can I just allow what's happening to be here for a second? Just allow it. And while you're kind of giving it, because it kind of gives it a little room to exist, so let it kind of fester on its own. Then notice what you see. Notice what you hear. Notice what you smell and taste. I'm telling you, present moment awareness, as cliche and as overused as saying, many people say that is key here. Come back to this moment, for real. Right now you're watching me. That's it. There's not a future to get to, and there's not a past to get to. Your mind will keep thinking about it. So when your mind starts thinking of the future or the worries and the problems, like, okay, then just come back. What am I doing right now? When you're washing the dishes, just wash the dishes. And this is extraordinarily important for you, especially since you suffer so much. Like, you can't just say, oh yeah, that's a nice idea, and then not practice. You really have to be here. Right now, how are you here right now as I'm talking to you? Are you present? For real, are you actually present right now? And just punctuate your, don't worry about being perfect during the day, but punctuate your day with moments of looking, just, I see the grass. I see what's happening. I'm right here. I'm right here. Not like a repetition in your head, but actually being in full contact with what you see, taste, hear, like being a baby again, just totally here. And I may get this feeling like, oh no, I can't do that, because then I need to worry about my problems. I need to worry. I need to suffer. I need to be depressed. Nothing's good enough. Come right back. Everything that goes to your mind, throw away in the garbage. Just be present. And don't make a big task out of it. Just punctuate. Just punctuate your day. Okay, boom. And when you're suffering, what color is the wall? What do you hear? Smell. What's here? Not running, but allowing. What is here? And punctuate your day like that. That's how I would start meditation. Is doing that on your, don't worry about a formal sitting practice. Don't worry about that. Just do it all day. What's here? What's here? I'm here. And not as a repetition, not as a mantra, but an actual contact with your experience. And I feel for you because I understand. I mean, we're different, so I don't understand exactly your experience, but I know the pain of anxiety and depression. And I promise your mind can change if only you become present. Allow yourself to be here. Allow your problems to just be there in the background and just be here primarily. And just keep coming back. Don't fight it. Just keep coming back. Getting lost in word? Okay, it doesn't matter. Just begin again. Just begin again and begin again. It will change. I promise. How did you get past the resistance to letting go of the default mode? I became very present. I noticed what is. I think the problem is that people say, be present, be present, be present. It's so overused that we just say like, yeah, but give me the real stuff. No. Being present means to really see. When you see, you just see. You just hear, you just taste. Becoming more and more present breaks up this resistance. Because presence it kind of at the same time means to allow. We allow what is to be and just notice what is. Then you'll actually start to notice the default mode network, the chattering mind, as just chatter. It becomes not so in your face like this. Usually our thoughts are like this, and we're just thinking all the time, and everything I do goes, I don't like this, I like you, I don't like it, I don't know if I could do that, I'm such a bad person. It's always like this. Or you can feel it like this. And that requires being present. Being present. And you can just see it. The more you're present, the less it has this influence. So And there is a resistance because there's an addiction to the default mode network. There's an addiction to thinking. So it can feel like you're losing something valuable, but you're not. You're letting thinking do its own thing, and you're noticing what's here. And of course, a really good thing for that is the breath. The breath really helps. So glad I caught you this morning. Big fan. I have an important question for you. I read the story of the Buddha and the angry man. The Buddha says we can choose to be compassionate rather than letting anger take hold of us. My question is anger also inevitable? If it stems from hurt, sadness, or fear, it seems it would be. Anger is inevitable, just like happiness is inevitable, depression is inevitable. All feelings are basically inevitable, unless you are a Buddha, which is somebody who has completely seen through all of the mind stuff, essentially, and is unattached completely. Don't worry about that stuff either. Yeah, emotions, you're a human being. You're a human being. Anger is inevitable. I get angry, I get sad, I get depressed, I get anxious. It happens. But what's nice about the practice is that you can allow those things to be there and not attach to them. And the less you attach to them, the less they show up. And when they do show up, they become like an alarm clock or a presence. Be like, okay, I'm angry. Oh, okay. What's happening? Let's feel this, So yeah, it's inevitable, and that's why we practice. And maybe there's somebody out there who doesn't ever get angry ever again. I have my suspicions about that, even as much as people claim. But I think it's inevitable. Why is there an urge to capture the journey of an idea? If I let the thought go, if I let the idea go, there's a feeling of separation, like I'm missing or holding on to that understanding, and I have no idea later if I would be able to remember it. It's because we are habitually addicted to our thinking. It's actually a very common thing if you do a meditation retreat, where you're basically meditating, staring at the floor for 12 hours a day, where the most incredible ideas will show up. And there's this thought like, oh, I gotta write this down or I'm gonna lose this amazing screenplay or the cure for cancer. Well, if it's the cure for cancer. Actually, my teacher would say, don't worry, just throw everything in the garbage. Unless it's the cure for cancer, then write it down. But no, there's the mind really just wants to attach to thinking in every way. There's like this implicit feeling with thought that says, this is important to think about now. This is an important thing to pay attention to. Pay attention to me is what thoughts are saying. And so when you start to let go of that, there can be this kind of resistance, like, oh, wait a minute, what's happening? It's like, no, I need that. This is why a lot of people prefer to stay in a relationship that's hurting them, or they prefer to suffer than not. A lot of people identify with their suffering, with, like, say, anxiety or depression, whatever, and it's a big part of their identity. So they don't actually want to lose it. A lot of people just want to suffer because it's who they are. And this is just attachment to thinking. So when you're practicing, resolve before you start, say, a permanent or a formal meditation practice. Resolve beforehand. I am not going to attach to anything in the head, no matter how good the idea. I'm going to let it all go. Hi, Nathan. Hello from Ukraine. Thank you for your work. I started practicing with your videos about a week ago, and I have a question. As an interim stage for being completely lost in thoughts about future, past, work, is it okay to mentally say, breathe in, breathe out? Oh, that was a deep breath. I felt it more in my belly, etc. Like, if I can't stop talking in my head, at least focus this talking on describing my sensations during breathing. Thank you. I think that's a wonderful idea. There's a part of the channel, there's a part of this practice that I haven't really shared much with y'all, which is because I think it can be very severely misunderstood, and I'm trying to figure out a way to describe it. But I think, so like mantra practice. And it actually does exactly what you're saying. So when you're like lost in discursive thinking about, you're worried about work, school, finances, and then you're thinking about how much money you have in your bank account, but then you got to worry about what you're going to cook for dinner. But then what about that pain in your left foot? You know, that. Or instead you can be like, ooh, that was a nice breath. That was good. Oh, that was shallow. I'm breathing in, I'm breathing out. That takes the attention away from what we can call the default mode network, this kind of case of rumination. So when there's a big part of my practice is called the Great Dharani. It's a mantra, but it's not spiritual. I have to make this clear. It's not spiritual. It's just a way for the mind to not be sticky with thoughts. Now, you can learn mantra practice. I'll give you an example. It's a little sample of it. So I'm always going, a lot of the times in my head, it's Shima Sango de Dawade Namarada da Dina Namakaya Barakidisadabai, Mujisadabai, Mahasadabai, Mahagaronigai, Onsababai, Sudadarigaya, Saminamakidadabai, Mamania Barakidisabada, Ragatana Magadina, Mabata, Isimisabada, Sanazubana, and Sababaldana, Bamamara, Misudekam, Tanyata. And it goes on a lot longer than that. It goes about like 5 minutes, just straight down. If you look, you can look it up. It's called the Great Dharani. And so, yeah, that repeating that in the head all the time is this way for thoughts to kind of come and not stick, because you're I wonder what I'm going to do for, you know. So it's just it just doesn't really have a place to stay. So another really simple way to do this is what they do in the Thai forest tradition. You can say bu do. So when you breathe in, bu, out, do. Bu, do. I wonder what I'm going to eat for breakfast today. Bu, do. I can't believe she said that. What a little bu, do. Bu. See? And you keep doing that, and yeah, it really, really helps. It really, really helps. So that is an excellent way, but I would suggest not doing something that's random. I would do something that's repetitive. So there's a really important part about the repetition of it. My teacher's teacher would say, you can just say Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola, 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 Coca-Cola. But it doesn't matter what it is. But just make sure it's kind of repetitive. The mind likes the repetition. And then when you breathe in, breathe out. Bu, do, bu, do, bu, do. And do that all day. It's an excellent practice. Not something I've introduced until just now, but I'm trying to figure out how to introduce that in a way that people don't think is ultra spiritual or whatever. So, but yeah, good. Have you found the watcher? It's been a while since I've answered questions, so this is probably why you're really interested in this. You probably asked multiple times, but it's the same answer I've given you, which is you're trying to think your way through this. Remember what Sri Ramana Maharshi says. The question, what am I, is not a question to be answered in the usual way. It's not findable. It's a question to dissolve. The one that just asked me that question, have you found the question? Have you found the watcher? The one that is asking that feeling of being a me, what is that? You look. Don't ask me. And don't think you're going to find something. That's just an idea in your head. How do I find it? It's not about thinking. Practice. Just look. When you're looking at an orange, it is just orange. The color is orange immediately, right? There's nothing else. Just, you only know that it's orange by looking. You can't talk and know that it's orange by saying, oh, what's a warmer kind of color? It's a mix between, it's not words. Don't confuse the map and the territory. Just turn and look. What are you sitting here watching this now? Leave your ideas alone. Throw them in the garbage. Not that there's anything wrong with your ideas, but for this practice, throw them in the garbage. What am I isn't something for you. What am I is okay? All right, well, that was all the questions. Thank you everyone for showing up and watching this. And I really do apologize for the latency on this Q&A. I've got to figure out something with the Q&A. It's a bit, it's really wonderful, and I always want to answer your questions. Maybe I need to figure out to do it once a week instead, or a format, but things always work out in different ways. But I appreciate y'all showing up. And of course, you can always ask me a question about practice. And I will want to put this caveat. Remember that I'm not a professional licensed therapist or anything like that. So it's extraordinarily important that if you really do need help in any way, that you find that professionally. This is a channel for a meditation practice, which may or may not work for you. So if you're going through something very serious, meditation can help, but of course, please just ask a professional. I have seen people think that meditation will save them when actually they need something else. They need medication or they need help. I've had that experience at temple settings. So please make sure you know that. I just want to make that clear. I'm not an expert. Find the experts. But of course, all things meditation, all things practicing and letting go and being part of this moment is what I'm here for. So I'm here for all your questions if you need them. And again, it is an immense honor and privilege to do this with you. It has been one of the greatest things. I feel that sharing this and devoting my life to this is really what is necessary for these times. And so it's been wonderful to see y'all show up and to engage and to see some insights from some of you, which has been really great, and to see some benefit that y'all are getting. And I'm so happy that these teachings and this practice, which has helped me, is also helping you. So yeah, remember, and let me know how it's going in the comments too. How is this practice changing you? And if people read that, it can help them be inspired to also take up the practice in a more sincere way. So, all right, I'm blabbling. Thank you all very much. And as always, and without exception, I'll see you tomorrow for tomorrow's meditation.
I got nothing to worry about. I got nothing to worry about.